how do you find and cultivate that drive? Like there is a kid right now watching this, man, and they feel like you felt, they feel lost, alone, broken, stupid, lazy, like they're never going to amount to anything. And what you're talking about is the closest thing to a fucking superpower that this kid has ever heard. And right now he is on the edge of his seat. How does he like force himself to take that first step?
I'm very fortunate that I grew up at a time when there was no phones and there was no social media. And I suggest, yes, I'm on social media on a very limited basis because I have a story to tell, and it's a great platform. Use it as a platform, don't use it as your life. My biggest advice to give everybody in the world is, like I say, we live in an external world. Everything is you gotta see it, touch it, it's external. If you can, for the rest of your life, live inside of yourself. Stop listening to people who are calling you fat, gay, transsexual, nigger. Everything that is makes no sense. All these insecure people putting their insecurities on you, you gotta flush it out. You gotta just be whoever the hell God or whoever the hell you believe in. If you believe in nothing but yourself, I don't care what it is. You gotta take everything and throw it away. You have to believe in one thing, and that is yourself. And I'm not saying don't believe in God or what you believe in, but right now, for you to find greatness in yourself, you're not gonna find it by looking in a book or by even hearing me. I may give you the spark, but you've got to go inside yourself to find it. And that means you gotta be quiet. Shut the fuck up, go in a room, stop talking, search your soul, search your mind, search your abilities, and you'll find it. But if you're not looking for it, you won't find it. So you gotta go start your journey. And the journey starts with you finding, why the hell am I here on this planet Earth? Why am I here? And if you don't know that, you will live the rest of your life searching, always asking the question, why?
We're trying so hard in our lives to fit in. We try to fit into certain groups, certain frats, certain sororities, among certain friends, yet the people we idolize are the ones that stand out. But when you're prepared, there is no fear. There is no fear of failure, okay? Because even if you've walked out of something and you feel like you failed at it, your preparation is so strong that you're gonna take that failure and turn it into the outcome you desire. And most people stop at failure, okay? We've all failed at things. I'm gonna continue to fail at stuff, right? It's the most powerful tool you can use, but it all depends on how you use it. We talk about it in Relentless, okay? A scalpel, okay? In the hands of an individual, it can do unbelievable damage. In the hands of a professional, of a doctor, it saves lives. So it's the same thing with failure. It's how you use it. It's that drive inside of you, okay? It's what we talk about, the dark side. The dark side is filled with failure, but it's the fuel that burns you like something that's never burned inside you before.
I think that in response to trauma, this is not specific, I would say, to survivors of the Holocaust, but I think generally, we are all today talking about grit, resilience, strength. These concepts have permeated everywhere. Why is it that one set of circumstances knocks one person down and becomes the resource with which another person builds themselves up? And what is the difference between people who, after extreme experiences, basically survive because they're not dead, versus those who are alive and come back to life? And what does it mean? When you survive, you live very close to the ground, you are often suspicious, you don't trust, the world's a dangerous place, and you cannot leave the base. Because in order to leave the base, like a child who leaves the lap of the parents, you need to feel safe enough that there is a base to come back to in order to go and to take risks and be creative and be playful. All these experiences, or be an entrepreneur, all these risk-driven experiences require you to be able to deal with the unknown, because all of them have an element of uncertainty. If you are too afraid of the unknown and all what you try to do is protect yourself from it, you cannot go out in the world and do all those things. On the other side, if you understand how to create an antidote to death, how you actually use this very same thing, how you maintain yourself alive in the face of adversity, that's when you enter into the continuum of resilience. You know, to experience pleasure, you cannot be worried. It just don't go together. You cannot be at the same time anxious and vigilant and experience pleasure. Pleasure comes with an element of freedom and unself-consciousness, a surrender. And that surrender you can only do when you have a modicum of trust in the world, in yourself, and in the people around you.
And that's how, so when people have that trauma, they need to get that trust back before they can then go venture more, take more risks. And some people never do.
And some people never do.
You know, there's a principle from my book where I talk about, from all the people I've interviewed, they always have some type of adversity that they turn into their advantage.
Right.
And that's what you did.
Yeah.
You had this adversity.
You're like the alchemist of everything, but especially adversity.
That's it.
You know, and I think that's a trait amongst all successful people. I think if you see or talk to or get in a conversation deep enough with somebody who's actually built something of their life, they're going to be able to tell you something that was terrible, and they're going to be able to show you how they saw it as an advantage. Mm-hmm. And I think that's such a huge key. You know, how many things do we hear about from the average Joe that, you know, you or I or any of these other guys could look at and be like, wait, dude, this is actually a good thing if you look at it this way. They're like, no, it's terrible.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
If you ask anyone who's made a difference in the world, or anyone who's have a massive business, any great athlete, whatever it may be, scientist, doctor, it doesn't matter who it is, if they're at the top of their game, they've gone through some extreme adversity some point in their life.
Right.
Maybe it was when they were 8, maybe it was when they're 28,
right.
Maybe it was when they're 48.
Right.
But they've gone through something extreme that they've had to overcome.
Right. And dude, those things are the things that are going to teach you what to do when things go wrong, how to react. They're going to give you your strength. They're going to give you your competitive advantage. And people spend so much time trying to seek the comfort that society tells us we have to have, right? They say, oh, well, get a safe job and marry and have 2.5 kids and do all this shit that like is considered safe. And people seek the path of least resistance. And by doing that, they avoid all these things that could potentially end up making them so much more fulfilled, impactful, and all the great things that, you know, make people quote unquote successful, not just financially, but in any area.
Right.
You know,
I see a lot of stress. I see a lot of anxiety. I see a lot of people who are tired and exhausted, and because, you know, we're collectively tired and exhausted and stressed, the first thing we do to alleviate that is we seek out pleasure. Things that are pleasurable. Watching great television shows are pleasurable. Eating comforting foods. Even sometimes mindlessly scrolling on Facebook is soothing. It's pleasurable, right? And we spend a lot of our lives doing these things because they're almost like a Novocaine to the day-to-day struggles that we go through. And that might sound morbid, but it's just the truth. We all have little micro struggles we're going through. Sometimes they're macro struggles, but we're trying to use these little pleasurable things to kind of bolster our feeling of well-being, right? And you know what? I understand. I get it. And it's important to have things that are pleasurable in our lives. But here's what we're missing, okay? We're missing that fulfillment aspect. A lot of us go through our lives and in a blink of an eye, 2, 3, 5, sometimes 10 years floats away from us, right? Think about those time periods. Think about how quickly they're passing now that you're getting older. If we're always focusing on pleasure, we're not doing things that are building us anything in the future, right? That's where fulfillment comes in. Fulfillment involves not something that pleases you in the moment, but something that might not be pleasurable, but will have a long-term lasting effect that you really appreciate. So what are things like that? Well, anything from, you know, learning a skill like painting or drawing, or an instrument, or another language, or martial art, or, I mean, you know, raising a kid. You know, these are all things that are not fun while you're doing them, right? They're not easy, and they take a lot of work and a lot of consistency day after month after year to get right. But when you finally completed the task or part of the task, The fulfillment means that the struggle that you had to go through to get to this point was all worth it, and it feels like you've completed an important project in your life. Those are the things that we want to start collecting. Those are the memories that we want to hang on to. All the pleasure that you go through on a day-to-day basis, hey, listen, it's okay if you need to use that to help yourself feel a little bit better. But if you only focus on feeling good, on going out and drinking with your friends, on watching TV, on watching movies, on, you know, doing things just to get a nice, good feeling, just to get a high, you're never gonna have time, really, because we don't have that much time in our day. You're never gonna have time to work on the things that might actually fulfill you long term and allow you to look back on your life and say, wow, I really did something meaningful and important, and it was worth being here.
You're dealing with an addicted generation.
This is a big time bomb ticking.
It will get really worse, right. Okay? So combine that with the fact, so you have an addicted generation that doesn't have the skill set to ask for help. Combined with the fact that they're so good at Facebook and Instagram, they're good at putting filters on everything. So they're good at showing you how smart and strong they are. These kids who commit suicide, you go look at their Instagrams, you would have no clue that they were depressed because they're happy and they're star athletes. Right? You'd have no clue because they're really good. So when we say silly things like, my door is always open, you're assuming they have the courage to come in. Combined with the fact that they're subject largely, not all, but too many, to a failed parenting strategy. Because their parents told them they were special, they could have anything they wanted, they can be anything they want, they got medals for coming in last, which by the way we know doesn't work. It devalues the medal for the one who comes in first, and the one who came in last, it makes them feel stupid because they know they didn't deserve it. Right? The kids got into honors classes not because they deserved it, but because the parents complained. And some of them got good grades not because they earned them, but because the teachers didn't want to deal with the parents. And then the kids graduate college, and they get a job, and in an instant, they find out they're not special. They don't get anything for coming in last. Their parents can't get them a promotion, and you can't have whatever you want just because you want it. And in an instant, their entire self-image is shattered. And so you have an entire generation growing up with lower self-confidence than previous generations. So you have lower self-confidence than previous generations, combined with an inability to ask for help with things that you're struggling with, and you turn to social media or a device, you keep checking, you count your likes, you count your likes, you count your followers, and if somebody unfriends you, oh my God, it's trauma, right? The way they break up with each other is they just ghost each other, just cut each other out and stop returning texts and returning phone calls because they don't have the skill set to say, hey, it's not working out. It's not me, it's you, right? There's no closure on things, right? Combined with the fact there's an institutionalized impatience. So they've grown up in a world of instant gratification. You want to buy something, you go on Amazon, it shows up the next day. You want to get in touch with someone, you don't leave a message on their machine and wait 4 hours for them to get the message, you just text them and they get back to you immediately. You want to watch a movie, you just log on and watch it. You don't have to check movie times, right? Everything happens instant. You want to get a date, swipe right. You don't even have to muster up the courage to go and be like, hey, you know? You don't have to. There you go, got a date, right? And so the problem is, they're accused of being entitled. I don't think they're entitled at all. Not at all. I think they're impatient. I keep meeting these fantastic, smart, driven, ambitious, idealistic, fantastic kids who graduated school, they got a job, they want to make an impact in the world, and I go up to them and say, how's it going? And they say, I think I'm gonna quit. I'm like, why? They're like, I'm not making an impact. I'm like, you've been here 8 months. And it's as if they see the summit of a mountain. It's as if they're standing at the foot of a mountain and they can see the summit. They can see the thing they want. I want to make an impact. What they don't see is the mountain. This large, immovable object. You can go up fast, you can go up slow, I don't care. But there's still a mountain. What they don't understand is that life, that relationships, and career fulfillment are a journey. There's no app for that. I got nothing. You've got to go through the slow, plodding, annoying, meandering process called career and life.
I try to think about every day, I try to wake up and work on like what excites me, what makes me feel like I'm having impact or I'm sort of fulfilling my potential in some way. So if I'm thinking about a foundational belief, it's that everyone has something that they can offer the world, and they've got to figure out what that thing is, and then they've got to make a lot of very difficult decisions usually saying no to things that puts them in the best position to fulfill whatever that potential is. Yeah, I mean, I talk about this a little bit in Obstacle. The psychologist Viktor Frankl, who survived multiple concentration camps in World War II, he's talking about, he created this philosophy called logotherapy, which is supposed to be the philosophy of the meaning of life. And he says that that question itself is somewhat problematic, right? You're supposed to ask someone else, like, what is the meaning of life? Like, you're asking me what the meaning of my life is, not generally, but that's what we do. We go like, what's the meaning of life? As though someone's supposed to tell us. And he's saying, no, actually, life is asking you that question. Existence asks you that question, and you answer it with your choices and decisions and the life so your life is the answer, right? So I tend to find the most meaning in being creative, in relationships with other people, and with to a certain extent, like, to go to what I was saying earlier, exploring whatever potential I have, like physically, mentally, skill-wise. Like, it's living your life in a way that answers that question, so you don't have to find the words to answer the awkward question.
Right. That thing you dread or secretly hope won't happen, what if it wasn't so bad? What if embedded inside of it or inherent in it were certain benefits? Benefits only for you. What would you do? Now, if you'd ended the quote there, maybe it wouldn't hit me so hard. But then you go on. Probably what most people do. Nothing.
I always say, if you want to be an anomaly, you have to act like one. Like, people want all these special things to happen, but then they're acting like everybody else. And that gets into the Saturdays in your 20s, like, or just like taking risks or things of that nature. Like, we all fail. We've all failed. Like, my parents haven't been killed, my child, I mean, there's people that have their children die. Like, could you imagine? Like, the shit I deal, listen, unfortunately, or fortunately, depends on how one wants to look at it, I'm a pretty optimistic guy. I lost 3 of my 4 grandparents before I knew them. 2 before I was born and 1 very early on. Like, so, it's easy for me to be happy. I have my shit in the right order. The health and well-being of my family. And there's nothing even remotely close to that. Not even remotely. People have gotten through much worse. This is why I'm trying to recall our grandparents and our great-grandparents. People were persecuted and killed. Like, we do not have real headaches. I don't know why I have this highly emotional and then completely unemotional part of me, but I mix them together to create the balance, and that's what works for me. So, of course there's nothing that I couldn't get up from. Like every other human ever besides somebody who now lives in some weird cave that we don't know about. You know what I mean?
I do.
We are strong as shit. We're really fucking strong. We're just being sold that we're not, because there's a lot of money in telling us that we're not pretty enough, thin enough, smart enough, good enough. Fuck that. I want to tell you, you're the fucking best. Go do shit.
It's how you perceive those things. I've looked at every experience that I've had, negative and positive, and taken that as a positive. If I wouldn't change anything, because I think it would alter some of the other things that happened. So when I look back, I can't say that I've had any bad things happen. Sure, I mean, you don't want bad things to happen, but you deal with bad things. You can't have good or without bad.
We want to believe that there are shortcuts to success. We want to believe we can take a drug, or we can do something that'll make it quick and easy. But the truth is, it takes grit. It takes persistence. It's the people like Thomas Edison, who had no education, who came from a very poor background, who really end up making it in life because they are persistent and they don't settle for anything remotely mediocre. That's what ends up making you get ahead in the world, and it's really democratic, and that's what's so great about it, and that's what's so great about the world that we live in. We live in a time where things are not purely democratic, don't get me wrong, but they are much more democratic than they were in the past. A meritocracy, it's not about if you went to Yale or if your daddy is rich, it's about you, and you have the material to get there.
Things are going good and you visualize these good things happen, you visualize more good things happen, that's easy. What's not easy to do is when things are going bad. and you're visualizing the good stuff. And that was what I was able to do. I was able to, you know, even though I was having these troubles at home, and even though I had no job, no security, you know what I mean, or whatever, didn't know what I was doing. If it didn't happen, it didn't happen, but I still was able to feel like it was. I still was able to go into a different, just like use my imagination, like a kid would use his imagination. I was basically just using my imagination.